Hey quilters, it's Patti Carey of Patti's Patchwork. Thank you for joining me in the For the Brave Quilt-along event celebrating the 10th anniversary of Northcott's Stonehenge Stars and Stripes collection. I hope you're having fun. This month we're working on Block 5. Along with a copy of the For the Brave pattern, here's what you need to get started. In addition to our previously cut C3, D2, E1, E9, H4 and I2 pieces, we also need fabric J. We're going to start with the units for our center block, sewing an E9 triangle onto adjacent edges of each C3 square. I like to start with the square end and have my triangle tip extend 3/8 of an inch below the bottom edge of C3. We'll press our seams towards C and add the adjacent triangle, again aligning them so that we start with that square or top corner and have the two E triangles cross on the 1/4 inch seam line at the bottom edge. I make 4 of these units, finger pressing my seams towards fabric C. Once they are done, I can add the H4 triangles, and I'm going to start with the bottom left triangle, aligning the outer tips with my unit and having H extend 3/8 of an inch below the bottom edge of my unit. This helps me manage the direction of the seams. I finger press my seam toward fabric H, and then I can add the bottom right H4 triangle, again aligning those two outer tips and now having them cross on the 1/4 inch seam line at the bottom edge. I'd make 4 of these units, and once they are sewn, I trim my triangle tips to help reduce bulk, and I finger press my seams toward fabric H. I do not use an iron at this point because while the H4 edge is straight of grain, that top E9 edge is biased, and if I press with an iron, I'll distort it. I take those units and combine them with the J and D2 pieces in a 3x3 layout to create my center block. I sew column 2 pieces to column 1 pieces, chain piecing them. So the top row of column 2 to the top piece of column 1, then the second row of column 2 to the second row of column 1, aligning my patches at top and bottom edges so that my block stays as square as possible. Then the third row of column 2 to the third row of column 1. We're going to keep those chains intact, and then we can add column 3, all the units or pieces in column 3 to the units or pieces in column 2. Making them match at top and bottom edges, and once that is done, I finger press my seams towards the center D or the corners J, and that will allow the seams to nest when I sew the remaining 2 seams in this block, which we will do now. So I make them align at the top and bottom edges, and then I check to make sure that those seams are nesting properly. You can almost feel, you really can, to feel if those pieces are nesting properly, if there's any space between those 2 seams. And if there is, just wiggle them a bit to make them fit. I sew both of these seams, and I will finger press my seams toward the center or D fabric when I have finished sewing both seams. Again, I'm going to finger press, not use an iron because those D9 edges are still exposed and I will distort them if I press with an iron. Now it's time to build our corner units. We're going to take our E1 triangles and our I2 squares, and we're going to sew them just like we did with the C3 E9 units, putting the square corners together and having that E triangle extend 3/8 of an inch below the bottom tip of I2. Finger press the seam toward I and add the adjacent E1 triangle, again starting with that top or square corner. My machine likes it best if I start with the square corner as opposed to a triangle tip at that top edge. It feeds the fabric better. Make 4 of these units, finger pressing the seam toward fabric I. We turn our center block on point, 45-degree angle, and we add our 4 corner units to the 4 corners of our block. We take 2 opposite block corners and we add them to our block. I pin to align the outer tip of C3 with I2. I position my pin vertically and pinch that intersection, holding it very tight, and then take the pin and slide it in on an angle and out on an angle, and that holds that intersection nice and tight. I'll align my corner unit so that both the top and bottom tips are extending 3/8 of an inch above and below my block edges, and that's where they are correctly aligned so that I do not lose the points of C and I in my block corners. I'll finger press my seam toward the corner units, so toward that I2 unit. Add both opposite sides, and now I can add the 2 remaining opposite sides, pinning those center intersections again. This time, the tips will cross on the 1/4 inch seam line, and that will help me not lose my points on my I and C blocks. Keep the edges aligned, let it feed through your machine. Because you've got bias edges, you can make it fit so that they do cross on the 1/4 inch seam line. I finger press my seam toward the corner units, and now I can actually press the block with an iron. And there you have your block 5. And here you have block 5. Head on over to Northcott's Instagram page to enter the month 5 giveaway for a chance at some fabulous prizes. You'll find all of the details and rules on Northcott's Instagram page. And if you haven't signed up for the For the Brave Quilt-along newsletter, you're welcome to do so on my website. You'll find it on the Quilt-alongs tab. Each month in it, I share extra tips and tricks on how you can get your blocks done. There's also a Facebook group, For the Brave Quilt-along Facebook group, and you're welcome to join that as well. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you back here next month for Block 6.